Today I'm going to be recreating this look. It's very pre-Raphaelite coded, it's very painterly and mythic. This is a photo of model Lily Cole, and I just love everything about it. The makeup's quite simple but impactful, and the hair is amazing. I'm gonna see what I can do hair-wise. And I also want to recreate a photo of this and try and get it as similar as I can, because my channel is all about finding ways to make yourself feel a little bit more mythic and romantic. So I think it'll be fun to try and also recreate the photo. So let's get into it. Okay, the hair. I'm pretty sure Lily Cole has naturally curly hair, or at least wavy hair, so achieving that volume isn't too difficult for her. However, I do think she did have a wave wand used in her hair in this look. Many of you will be familiar with my beloved wave wand. I've done a couple tutorials on doing some beachy waves with this, but today is going to be all about really getting at the root as best as I can and getting as much volume as I can. I do think that there was a wave wand used at least at the top of her hair, even if she has some natural curls and volume. You can see it. In fact, I think you can see that dent that I warned you guys against getting when you get too close to the root. Kind of contributes to that extra volume bump. So the key difference with this type of wave pattern is that I'm going to be using thinner sections of hair. So you know when you see people who've gone to the hairdresser to get highlights or something, and the more highlights they get and the more those aluminum pieces are tiered into their hair, the more voluminous their hair looks. The principle's sort of the same. So the more tiers I can get within my hair, the more I'm going to get that volume. So I'm going to take a pretty thin section right at the top. Whereas normally I might take like half of this and then a little thicker here. It's this thin layer. And especially these top sections, just so you can really see the wave, I might spend a little bit more time making sure the wave is quite indented. Clip that over there and go for another very thin section. A thin and wide section. Essentially as wide as will actually fit in this wand. So get right up there to the root. Again, very similar to those Aphrodite ethereal waves I've been loving and wearing all the time. Just a bit more involved, and this will definitely take me a long time, and it's not something I'd want to do on an everyday basis. And not worrying about getting the heat dent if it shows up. The heat dent is when this part of the wand leaves a dent, so it's not actually part of the curl pattern technically. I'm gonna do the rest off camera because this is gonna take me a very long time. So as you can see right off the bat, these waves look very different than the softer mermaid waves. They're a little bit wild. So I wanna get some volume into it, brush it out, make them look like less shiny and more sort of matte. So the first thing I'm gonna do is simply brush them out with a regular old hairbrush. And just doing that starts to make them feel a little bit like it's just a natural hair texture happening. See, like, look at the difference there. Ooh, ooh. So now I have this dry bar brush that's recommended for a little bit of teasing. So I'm going to go under some of the sections and just give it a little bit of volume. I feel like this look is going to not look put together until the makeup's done, especially because this is not my natural hair texture at all, but trust the process, trust the process. So just work in some like backward strokes throughout the hair. And then I'm going to use this hair texturizer from Kristen S. It's a working texture spray, so it has a soft matte finish and a really light hold. I'm really going to get that in at the root. And actually all through the hair, really. I've just pinned my hair back so we can focus on the makeup, and I will finesse the hair and any finishing touches it needs at the end, but I really have to see how this is looking with makeup to get that hair right. So foundation, definitely a matte foundation, and she just happens to be quite fair. I think I will opt for one of my winter foundations just to create a bit of a similar effect with the type of complexion she has. So I'm using my Urban Decay Face Bond. This is the shade 3 Warm, and it is definitely a winter shade for me. So we'll see if it doesn't look too ghostly. But of course, this isn't to say that you can't do this same look with any type of skin tone. I just want to experiment with getting sort of the colors quite similar to the picture and with my red hair, you know? Now this foundation is said to self-set, so it almost has like a matte powdery finish to it, which is really interesting. And that kind of finish I think will be quite good for this. She looks really matte. Like I don't see glow at all. We're gonna get the lid. And then definitely bringing this down the neck to blend. This is one of those foundations, I talked about this in my skincare video, where at first it almost looks like a little dry, but I find it wears really nicely as my natural oils start to peek through the foundation. Now at this point, I want to brighten the center of the face. Like compared to the blush here, there's just like a lot of luminosity right at the front. So I'm going to go in with the shade Chantilly from NARS in the Soft Matte formula. And just brighten up the front of the face, essentially, including the nose. Now this photo has clearly been edited. There's like a painterly look to it and some kind of almost green in the shadows. She likely wasn't that pale in person. You can always like play with the edit to create a little bit more of that look. Now it's hard to say if she has any kind of contour or bronzer. I definitely see on the one side of her face, like it looks like there's dimension, but it could just be in editing. It could just be in the way the shadows are falling in this photo. So I'm gonna start with the blush before I decide whether to add any extra shaping to the face. And what really drew me to this look was the contrast between the rather orange lips and then the little bit more cool tone, classic pink of the cheeks. So I'm interested to try that combination. It's so pretty. So the shade I'm gonna use is from Patrick Ta, and it's She's That Girl. I'm gonna go into just the powder part. Once again, sticking with the mattes and powders because she does look very, very matte. And I'm going to start that around here. Just place that and like start to move it a little bit up to the eye, dragging it down. It's almost a bit more of a vertical placement, although her face shape is a little bit more round and less long than mine. But that's not to say I can't also try this out. I'm gonna go in for a little bit extra just so it really shows up in the photos. I think that's really pretty, but I think I do want to play with a touch of other complexion product just to bring a little bit more dimension. So I'm going to use this Kaleidos Powder Trio. And as you can see, like this is a great type of palette for shaping out the face. You've got a brightener, a contour, a bronzer. I'm going to take a very fluffy brush because I don't want this to go on too much. Take a little bit of the bronzer, a little bit of this contour shade, and the fluffy brush is just going to really help diffuse the product. I'm just going to dust a little bit of dimension right under there. It's going to be very subtle, but these little differences can help with a photo. And then just a little bit here, just at the side of the face, like it's kind of barely perceptible and a little bit starting to carve out the eye area. You may not have even noticed that anything happened from that. And though that foundation is called a self-setting foundation, I still want to go in with a bit of powder. This is from NARS, it's the shade Cliff, and use this as part of my brightening. So bringing it in the front area of the face, it just further mattifies and brightens. Just really go in right there. And it's just gonna help everything blend together. Okay, the brows are interesting because they almost look like a bit of a bleach brow and they're quite messy. And I am torn about doing them exactly like that. Like that's not my vibe. It's sort of like if I just kind of put a bit of concealer in my natural brow shade I have here and called it a day. But I think I'm gonna do my own little twist just to make this feel a little bit more comfortable for me. I'm gonna go in with my usual brow product from Anastasia Beverly Hills, but I'm gonna go in with the lighter shade. It's a little bit more of a red. I usually go in for this slightly darker side, and I'm going to very softly fill it in just so I can have a little bit more thickness to the brow, but I'm still gonna leave it kind of unstructured, the same way hers is. Like I won't go in with a brow pen after a brow pencil, and I'll just move in upward strokes. It's not a thin brow, but I prefer to have that bit of shapeliness. As I said, like she has a very different face shape than mine and features, so sometimes you have to do some modifications to make a look work for your own features. And then a clear brow gel just to put everything in place and keep that lift upward. Now the lips are quite orange, so I'm gonna try out Lisa Eldridge Velvet Dragon for this one. This is one of my favorite oranges that still have a touch of mutedness to it. It's not like a vibrant orange, and I'm just gonna blot that on. Actually, all right, back it up. As I started to apply Velvet Dragon, I'm like, that's too red. So I'm going to wipe that off, even use my foundation brush. And instead, I'm going to try Melt Pumpkin. Melt Pumpkin really leans orange, and I feel like it's more like what she has on there. Yeah. It's like there's a bit of brown to it, like a muddy brown in the undertone, or a yellow. Actually, I think I want to layer a little bit of Melt Mum on top that has a little bit more brown to it to give it more of that painterly tone. The only place I see a little bit of shine is just a touch at the center of her bottom lip, more so that it just doesn't look ultra matte. Very subtle. I'm gonna go back into this palette and use it as an eyeshadow palette. And I'm really just gonna use, I think, these two shades. The first, the brightening shade, I'm gonna put all over the lid. Use this big fluffy brush from Glaminatrix that they just released. It's very, very fluffy. I'm gonna brighten up this part of the eye, especially. Just sweep that all over the lid. And then go into that contour shade with this same brush and put a little bit of definition on the lid. Literally, this is barely anything. The eyes don't even look like they have eyeshadow. It looks like natural shading. Then I'm going to take a smaller brush and take that same shade and right on the outer corner, just add a little bit of shading. Then I'm gonna take Beige Flag from Urban Decay and put it in the waterline. I don't think she necessarily has anything in her waterline, but it does look like it's kind of brightened, whether by just the editing and the sort of filter that's on the photo. I'm putting that little bit of brightening, adds that contrast to that slight shading right there. Now the lashes, I'd say just upper lashes, maybe the slightest on the lower, we'll see, but very curled. So it's very like upward. I'm gonna take my lash curler and just like take my time working up, moving it along the lash, doing that a couple times. And then I'm going to take a lengthening style of mascara, and this is from Thrive Cosmetics, and it's a dark brown. The shade is Crystal. I love this mascara. I've been using it every day, actually. We're just going to define those lashes. Try not to like chunk them up too much. Now I will say her eyes are quite wide apart. compared to mine. So I'm gonna put a bit of extra focus on the lashes on the outer part of the eye. So for my own taste, I'm just gonna add this extra bit to the lower lash to essentially create a little bit more illusion of space and my eyes being a little bit further out. You know, I just don't want to close off this area, just keep it feeling open. Okay, so I'm just doing some extra teasing, especially at the ends here, because the length of my hair and just the nature of my hair being trying to straighten itself and flatten itself out, it kind of drags down. But I really want to get that volume like around here. In particular for the photo, like I'm not necessarily going to walk around with my hair like this. I'll probably smooth it out a little, but to get this look, it's really about getting that really wild, almost tangled look into the body of it. It's very editorial too, in a way, you know? All right, I think we've got a great base to take some photos with. I'll likely have to continue to tease my hair as I take some photos and try and create this look. I think I've nailed down the colors as best I can in real life, because bear in mind with a lot of photos, like there's editing to it that creates that look that it's otherworldly. So there's almost like a bluish filter to this. As I said, some of the shadows look almost green, maybe even blue. So I'll do my best to also edit it in a similar style, but in terms of like how these colors translate in real life, I think I've got pretty close. So yeah, I'm excited to try and recreate the look. I've got my apple. And yeah, I'll show you some behind the scenes of how I'm going to take this photo. So for my photo setup, I basically rotate everything I do when I film and use this white wall I have in my apartment. The white wall definitely makes it easy to play with the background, whether it's playing with the color or swapping out the background. I only just started doing that, and I think I want to experiment more with like creating different backgrounds in post. And then when I bring it into my editing, I basically use Lightroom for the initial edit. The thing is with any photo, it looks pretty dull at first. You have to bring the life back into it, especially if you shoot in a neutral setting, or I shoot with raw photos. So I find I really have to add some more vibrance and contrast. I usually bring down the clarity a bit because photos I find almost can emphasize texture more. And you'll be like, I didn't know I looked like that. So I actually find bringing the texture down just actually looks more natural, even if it feels like you're cheating or something to smooth yourself out. And if you're going to be playing with something like grain in a photo, really bringing down the texture a little bit helps the grain look more like it's a film photograph. And I'm going to play with some backgrounds here, try and find some leaves, maybe a snake if possible. And yeah, just really experiment, look side by side with the photo and see what I can get. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but I just want to get a similar energy. Here's what I've come up with. This was really fun. And yeah, let me know if you want to potentially learn a little bit more about this behind the scenes with photos, because I can do a lot more of an in-depth tutorial for this. Thanks everybody for watching until the end. We really appreciate it. And definitely check out my Patreon, link down below, to get some bonus content and support the channel. It really means a lot. Thank you so much to all my Patreon Coven members and Magic Circle members. You're helping make this dream possible, and liking, commenting, and subscribing also helps. So thank you, and until next time, may you all find yourselves a little bit of makeup magic, and we will see you in the next video. Bye, witches. He's so cute.